Brooklyn Independent Television.
Coming up on Brooklyn Review.
The presidential elections are less than 2 weeks away, but not all New Yorkers will be able to perform their civil duties. Disabled people complain that some voting stations are not equipped for their needs. From Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, this is Julia Bassett.
And I'm Fred Brown here at the Brooklyn Museum, where we'll talk to a group of women leaders about the issues most important to them during the upcoming presidential elections.
Greenwich Village may have its Halloween parade, but if you don't want to leave the borough, you might want to head over to Clinton Hill, where there are two separate ghoulish celebrations taking place. I'm Sherry Carabin, and coming up on Brooklyn Review, I'll tell you all about them.
We'll have these stories and more next. Welcome to Brooklyn Review. I'm Brian Vines. Healthy hospitals are a vital component of healthy communities. In East Flatbush, SUNY Downstate Medical Center has been an anchor for generations, and now budget cuts threaten the future of one of Brooklyn's largest employers. Melissa Rose Cooper has more.
Lois Cooper was lucky to get a job last year after she was previously laid off. But a year later, she's facing employment troubles once more.
My initial reaction is, oh my God, again? And what am I going to do? You know, even though the reality of it, or people say, well, you have a whole year. If you're facing losing your job, that time doesn't make a difference. The bottom line is you're going to end up without a job, and now you're worrying about how you're going to pay your bills.
Lois is one of hundreds of SUNY Downstate employees slated for termination by next year.
I am truly saddened by the situation that Downstate has put me and hundreds of my coworkers in, and by the way, with the threat of more layoffs to come. I'm worried about my livelihood and indeed my future. I don't know how we'll be able to provide for my family, pay my bills, put food on my table, as I am the only member of my family that's employed, because this economy and budget cuts has already affected my family once.
The hospital said in a statement released in July that the layoffs were a result of financial hardships it incurred over the years. But workers, community leaders, and politicians say there has to be a better way to fix these economic woes.
We understand that SUNY Downstate and the city and state and America are in a tough fiscal climate, but cutting jobs and services is never the answer. Brooklynites have been hard enough by this economy, so we need to be creating jobs, not cutting them.
In an effort to fight these job cuts, over 10,000 Brooklyn residents signed a petition begging Governor Cuomo to help.
So we have to ask ourselves, what kind of standard of living and quality of life do we expect as New Yorkers? And we have to ask other questions, like what kind of city do we want to live in? What kind of future do we want to leave to the next generation of New Yorkers? Because the fact of the matter is this, if we want to consider ourselves a progressive, enlightened society, we have to do more for those who have the least. And right now we're going to do just the opposite if these closures go through.
Wall Street got a bailout. It's time that Downstate get a bailout. It's as plain and simple as that. And so we urge the governor, we urge the president, and those who stand in the way of the president to pass his Jobs Act, which obviously will have an impact on our local economy and will help us in providing jobs in the borough of Brooklyn and this nation. But in addition to that, it's time that the legislature join with Governor Cuomo and save Downstate. It's as simple as that.
We need Downstate, period. When you overlay that community with the medical issues that are impacting that community, as a former police officer, we would respond to Downstate and bring our offices there, Downstate in Kings County. That location there is one of the highest need of medical services in this entire borough. You don't remove an institution that's the fourth largest employer in the borough of Brooklyn and don't expect for it to be an impact in this borough at the same time.
Many of the workers who received pink slips say they're the sole provider for their families and don't know what they'll do.
I'm a mother of 3 that needs my support. How would I put food on the table, pay my rent, take care of my kids' school, and the health care that they need?
Downstate said in a previous statement, "We will continue to provide outstanding care to our patients, education to our students, and commitment to our research and surrounding communities throughout this process." But many who rely on the hospital for regular treatment still worry.
I have chronic hypertension, so I have to get my medication. I have to see my doctor at least every 3 months for blood work and to get refills if I need them, and for him to check my pressure. So those things started running through my mind.
It's unknown how many additional layoffs are in store for Downstate, but Brooklynites say they won't give up fighting.
Every Brooklynite deserves the best health care that we as a society can provide. So for the sake of Brooklyn's health and economic future, let's send a message loud and clear. No more layoffs and no disruptions to medical services.
For Brooklyn Review, I'm Melissa Rose Cooper.
The New York Women's Foundation and the Circle of Sisters for Social Change recently celebrated 25 years of philanthropy at the Brooklyn Museum. And in the backdrop of this year's tight presidential race, reporter Fred Brown was at the event where attendees spoke about the organization's mission, issues of concern for women in the current election, and the need for increased local leadership.
So I do recognize that this is a debate night, and yes, and we want to make sure that you get out on time to go watch the debate. But I do want to say that neither debates nor polls elect presidents. So what we need to do is to get out and vote, right? So I just wanted to say that. Remember that.
It's important to have everyone sitting at the table where the decisions are made. What we notice is many times policies are very well intended, but they were not crafted with the perspective of the user, with the perspective of the community that is actually going to live and either benefit or implement those policies. So in order for people to be at tables, they need to be perceived as experts, as people that know what they're doing, as leaders. This evening, we are honoring 2 not-for-profit leaders and 1 small business leader, in addition to recognizing a government figure in Charles Hines, the DA in Brooklyn.
Well, I'm really excited about this honor because the New York Women's Foundation does such vital work, helping to support women and girls, our next leaders of the world, and to be honored by them is really an affirmation and confirmation of what I've tried to do, not for my life, but also for my daughter's life and all of our daughters' lives, to really encourage everyone to live fearlessly and understand that you are the only thing that limits what you can possibly achieve.
I think I remember being empowered at the age of 5. And I can remember the very thing that happened. In kindergarten, at the PTA meeting, I remember the kindergarten teacher telling my mother, when we're supposed to be playing with blocks, she wants to write on the chalkboard. This child has a mind of her own. And my mother said, and that was supposed to be kind of a dig, not a good thing. My mother said, well, who else's mind should she have? And I stood tall.
And I'm so thrilled to be honored with Rita Zimmer, who has done such a marvelous job in making Drew House a reality. So I look forward to future collaborations with the Women's Foundation. I'm sure there's lots of things we can do over the next several years.
To the New York Women's Foundation, you set an extraordinary record of how you fund so many of us and make it possible for us to grow and to succeed. But one thing we ask the women when they come into any of our houses is, what do you need to succeed? And in a way, I think that's the lesson I've learned from the New York Women's Foundation, and I just want to thank you, because I think you taught me, that's the thing you used to ask us. What do you need to succeed?
And I guess I think that as we approach an election, which is a very important election, that we really need to pay attention to the needs of women and who is really looking to serve women and their children and really sees that the needs of the women and children are met. And I think it's a very important time because we see very little discussion about what are the services that women and children need in this country, not only in this country but in New York City.
So I stand here and I reflect on leadership, but I really stand here with the young people in my heart. I stand here for them, for the people who will never be recognized for the work that they do and the commitment that they put forth to end gender-based violence. As I reflect on leadership, I think it's about doing the best you can with what you have and the opportunity provided. I think it's about showing up even when it's hard, and I think it's about, at times, leading with blind faith.
After attending an event of this nature here at historic Brooklyn Museum, what would you say to President Obama and candidate Romney about what they need to have their eyes on?
Well, first of all, I know the debate is tonight, but I think tonight was a clear example of an event that they should have actually been at to see the enthusiasm, to see the visions, to see how women are empowered, how they empowered each other.
We need to have policies that not only talk about taxation, but policies that talk about wage policies, compensation policies, because the majority of the families are losing their earning power.
From a woman's perspective, I think it's really important for us to let all the candidates know that we have a voice, and it's important to listen to that voice. Our voice represents families, our voices represent communities. Our voices represent all the cultures and ethnicities that make up the fabric of this country.
The debates are done, and Brooklynites are ready to voice their choice at the polls this November 6th. And whether you intend to pull the lever for Obama or Romney, you expect the process to be easy and accommodating. But thousands of Americans with disabilities face the possibility of having the ballot box blocked simply because they can't access the polling places. Julia Vassie is with a Brooklynite negotiating that challenge.
Denise McQuaid says the ramp at her polling place in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn is a ski slope, and the 64-year-old woman who has been in a wheelchair since childhood after contracting polio can't go down.
The problem here is the ramp is too steep to come up, to go down safely and come up by yourself. You would have to, you'd have to be holding the door and you're going to fly down the ramp and be injured. This is an example of an accessible ramp. As you can see, I can push up without difficulty.
For about 30 years, while living in Shipshead Bay, she had been voting in person. But now, in Bay Ridge, mostly uses absentee ballots.
For physical access, you really have to have flat entrances or ramps, and you have to have machines that are accessible to the people who will be using them.
James Wiseman of the United Spinal Association thinks it's not right to make handicapped voters stay home on Election Day when they want to be active in politics.
If there's anything fundamental to America and democracy, it's one man, one vote. And when the city ignores the rights of people with disabilities, it undermines the basic nature of democracy.
A new study shows that over 3 million Americans with disabilities are sidelined on Election Day, despite the 20 years of laws seeking to boost their access to the polls. New York alone needs to accommodate thousands of handicapped voters, but as the Board of Elections recently found, the city's wheelchair ramps are sometimes too narrow or steep, disabled entrance signs are often missing, and voting booths are too close to the wall for wheelchairs to get to. That partly explains why voter turnout for people with disabilities is 11 percentage points lower than non-disabled.
We went to court. The court decided that people with disabilities have the right to vote, that the city wasn't doing enough to facilitate it. Even at places where there were ramps, for example, at entrances, many times the doors were locked. That was the ramped entrance, and there was no way for the person to alert anyone or gain access.
The officials said earlier they inspected every precinct for accessibility on Election Day and were unaware of the problems. The city attorney has declined to comment on camera due to an ongoing litigation. A judge handling the lawsuit instructed the authorities to work out a remedy.
The settlement that we're working on, which we hope the proposed order that the court will adopt, will require the city to put people in charge at every polling place on the day of the election to make sure that, in fact, even temporary obstacles don't bar somebody's right to vote.
Yet, despite the complaints, some progress has been made. One report found that since the 2000 election, the number of polling places nationwide that had obstacles for disabled voters has declined from 80% 12 years ago to 60% in 2008. Denise hopes that after this week's court decision, more ramps will be turned from ski slopes into smooth slides. For Brooklyn Review, this is Julia Vassie.
It'll only cost you $2.25 to get to the November 7th hearing for the MTA's 2013 proposed fare hikes at the New York Marriott at the Brooklyn Bridge. There are 4 proposals at hand, all aimed at filling the MTA's $277 million operating deficit. 2 of the options keep the base fare at $2.25, but raise the cost of the monthly unlimited Metro card to $125. The other 2 options would raise the base fare to $2.50, but keep a weekly card increase at $1 from $30 to $29, but would raise the unlimited Metro card to $112 instead of $104. An alternative to that plan would eliminate the bonus you get by adding $10 to your Metro card, but raise the price of a 30-day unlimited card by $5 to $109 and keep the weekly card the same price. The Transit Authority also proposes to tack on a $1 fee for new cards issued, but that's $1 that you can save by recharging your used card. It's a lot to take in, but we hit the street to get some of your thoughts on the proposals.
It's costing us a lot of money, and it's like the jobs that are out now is not paying us enough, and the Metro cards are keep rising. How do you expect us to pay for a Metro card if we can't, make it to work? The fare is like unbelievable. I feel like I wish I was in high school again to get a free Metro card.
I buy single fare cards, so I'm used to the $2.50 thing. But I think like if they raise it, it's gonna be like a lot of people are gonna be like getting mad over the 50 cents. So I think that, and the subways aren't really gonna improve. There's still gonna be like rush hour, like traffic and everything. So I think like they should just leave it the same.
I don't really pay subway because I have a student pass. So going out probably would be like a little more expensive, I guess, because it's $2.50 instead of $2.25. But I don't really have a big problem with it.
Fare, it shouldn't be that much. Like, during the MTA strike, I had to walk to school, and it's like, now you're trying to raise it. Like, you already raised the monthly from $89 to $104. Now you're trying to raise it even more. Like, it's too much. If they're going to raise the MTA fares, then they need to raise minimum wage, and they need to pay us more money.
Well, I think it cuts into the budget, but it's invaluable. What are you going to do?
Right, because you can still get anywhere, right?
Yes, you can. It's a wonderful system.
Right, you can't beat it anywhere. So you don't have a problem with it?
I can afford it. A lot of people can't.
Because it adds up, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it adds up a lot.
$2.50 is definitely too much for everybody that takes the subway still, because there are people that still hops the subways even though that they have the fare even at rates. By the time next year ends, it's gonna go up again. It's gonna come up to like $4 and change. So that's basically what I see.
The other day I got off at Flatbush and cops ran in the train station to arrest little kids. Like, it's not even a safe environment anymore where, you know, it's like it forces you to want to go get your license so you can have your own car.
I remember when you used to pay $1.50 to get on the bus and the train. I remember we had the little tokens. I was excited. You'd go anywhere for $3. Now with $4.50, it's like, I remember when transfers used to last for 4 hours. You're lucky if you beat the 2-hour range now. I feel like at the end of the day, the amount of money that they have us paying, this subway system, like granted we're getting newer lines, but the subway system is still messed up. It's plenty of times I'm still late for work because they're having signal problems and everything else. If you're going to charge us more money, then they need to make sure that they always have great signal services.
Long before the ghouls come out on Halloween night, 2 Clinton Hill groups begin preparations for their own unique celebrations. One features a Broadway-style production. The other is more likely to appeal to your monster instincts. And as Sherry Carabin tells us, both have become an annual tradition in the neighborhood, giving residents an alternative to the Halloween parade in Manhattan.
And then Bob's going to get the heart slapped into his hands, and Bob's like one of these guys, you know, he's going to walk along, and he's going to be like, oh yeah!
From a Broadway-style theatrical production to a battle of the monsters.
Well, this used to be Giga-Snatch, but I transformed him. This year it's Fing Fang Foom. He'll be bright green. This is the full bodysuit that I wear.
2 very different events that have changed the face of Halloween in this Clinton Hill neighborhood.
It's going to be like splayed open and the bloody, like it's just horrifying looking. But that's dry blood.
Longtime Clinton Hill resident and designer Jana Kennedy Heighton started Halloween 313 Theatrical on Clinton Avenue more than 15 years ago.
My college friends up the block and I decided to throw a party, basically, and in the front yard we made 3 tombstones.
Since then, the number of tombstones has grown, along with the show, which she has nicknamed Broadway in Brooklyn. It now includes 5 to 9 20-minute performances on a stage, with titles like The Vampire Opera. Each one features elaborate costumes and props.
Another cool prop, a friend of mine made this one. It's the Frog Prince.
Meet the prop master. Larry has been working with the crew for the past 10 years. How many props do you have here?
Exactly 1,332. But don't quote me.
The truth is, he has too many to count. While the props are important, they aren't the only thing that volunteers work on.
I'm not going to be in the show, but I'm going to be sort of helping on the night to just, adjust wigs and helmets and make sure things are taped in the right place and all that sort of stuff. It's been a long time since I've been involved in any kind of theater, so it's nice to get back to doing that.
Last year I was helping a lot with the props, masks, and sets. And this year I'm helping Matt with the background sets doing shadow puppets.
Are you going to act?
Possibly, I don't know. We'll know when it gets up to showtime.
Although the production draws much larger crowds today and requires a permit to shut down the street, there is one change that has made things a bit easier.
We stopped the live talking part of the show about 4 years ago when we realized how chaotic it could get. It's just easier. It's so much easier on us. It's easier on the running time of the show to have it pre-recorded, pre-edited, and then we pantomime or voice, mimic the voice on stage.
How many hours do you spend on one of your productions?
In years past, I would spend a great deal of time doing research. I like to start with the research. I'm usually the one that throws the theme out there first and see if anybody likes it.
This year's production is called Apocalypso.
I want to add more. Well, this is huge. It's a story of Cuckoo Kapultachek, that's his name, and his wife, and they are Mayans. He's been given the task by the gods of carving the calendar and deciding how the world will go in the future. And it's what he the obstacles he comes up against and the decisions that he has to make that will lead us into the future or not.
Over on Waverly Avenue, Robert Trock and a much smaller group of volunteers band together to put on an entirely different type of performance.
The name of the whole show every year is the Brooklyn Halloween Show. But this year's show, we're calling the Brooklyn Halloween 2012 Single Elimination Slaughter. And we call it that because it's an actual wrestling ring setup, which is a sort of sequel to last year. And we have 3 monsters that a guy that lives in his mother's basement ends up wrestling.
The show was officially organized in 2006, but a less formal performance took place before then.
In the beginning, we basically, it was totally guerrilla style. We dressed up in foam suits and beat the crap out of each other in the streets. And the kids would follow us, and we had such a positive reaction, we thought we should organize this and do this a little bit larger scale and less painful. And so that's kind of where the suits got bigger and better padded, and we incorporated story and more props and more people.
He'll come out of a crate, this crate here, he gets delivered and breaks out.
And then later I tear his head off, and that's where all the pipes and gore, we obscure that.
The other show on Clinton Avenue has been taking place for a while. Is that where you got your idea?
No. Actually, I didn't even think about them when we did this. They're much more theater kind of based over there. They might have some singing, maybe some dance numbers and things, which to us over here, that's not really Halloween. I mean, we want to have some blood. We want to scare the kids.
It was good eating right there. Yeah.
There is one thing kids at both attractions can count on, and that's candy. Good thing, too. After all, what would Halloween be without it? This is Sherry Carabin reporting for Brooklyn Review.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's Brooklyn Review. If you missed anything or you'd like to check it again, visit us at our home on the web at bricartsmedia.org. We're also on Facebook, iTunes, YouTube. You can even send us a tweet while you're waiting for that next bus. See you next time. Bye now.
Watch this and other Brooklyn Independent Television episodes online at bricartsmedia.org/BIT.